Imagine living 17 years in a suspended reality between hope and despair. For Kate and Jerry McCann, each of those days brought more questions than answers, until now. Because recently something changed. A decision of theirs that few expected has come to light and has shaken everything we knew about the case. If you also feel that there is still something hidden in this mystery and want to follow every detail that could bring answers, subscribe to the channel now and activate the notification bell. Here, each video is a new piece of this puzzle, and together we can get closer to the truth. What this decision reveals about what they know or have ceased to believe is still a mystery. But what has become clear is that the weight of the years is starting to show. The McCann house, a place that once was synonymous with family joy, has become almost a silent memorial. In the corner of the living room, there is still the photo that marked the world, the image of Madeleine smiling, as if the years had not passed. But looking at Kate and Jerry now, it's impossible to ignore the marks of time, not just on their faces, but in their eyes. Something has changed deeply. And here is the detail that no one expects. Their decision seems to have been motivated by something that was not publicly stated, something that could completely change the way we view this case. And while everyone wonders why now, a theory emerges that connects this choice with clues that have been ignored for years. But the lingering question is, does this mean they have given up? Or are they finally revealing something they always knew but never shared? It was when their official statement came to light that the course of the story began to change. For the first time, they admitted that perhaps it was time to stop actively searching for Madeleine. The phrase by itself was devastating, but it also left room for dark interpretations. Now think with me, if they decided to take this step, what does that say about what they truly believe? Did they receive information that was never disclosed to the public? Or has the weight of criticism and pressure finally become unbearable? What intrigues me the most is that this decision seems to connect with other key moments in the case. Like, for example, the confidential report that circulated among investigators a few years ago, suggesting that the searches were going in the wrong direction from the start. But this was never officially confirmed. And you know what's even more curious? Some sources close to the family claim that this decision was also influenced by new information that has not yet reached the public, but could change everything about the case. If this theory is correct, it would mean that the Madeleine McCann case was not only mishandled, but that the parents themselves always knew more than they publicly admitted. And if true, what else is still being hidden? What made everything more complicated was the unexpected silence. Kate and Jerry McCann, who for years were the active voices in public appeals and campaigns, began to gradually withdraw from the spotlight. Statements became less frequent, interviews rarer. To outsiders, it seemed that the strength that drove them was beginning to fade. But was it just exhaustion? Or was there something deeper behind this decision? There is nothing more to do, Jerry reportedly said in a moment of venting to a close friend, according to sources linked to the family. The simple phrase carried immeasurable weight. For 17 years, they faced accusatory glances, cruel headlines, and even investigations that hinted at the impossible, that they might be involved in their own daughter's disappearance. Imagine carrying that daily while still trying to find an answer to the question that never let them sleep. Where is Madeleine? Kate, on the other hand, seemed divided. Friends report that she still insisted on reviewing the case details, sifting through documents, revisiting police reports, trying to find something that had been overlooked. "I feel it's right in front of us, but we can't see it," she reportedly said, holding one of the old search posters, where Madeleine's eyes, so familiar, seemed to look directly at her. This internal conflict between the remaining hope and the exhaustion of so many years without answers created growing tension within the family. And when the media began to speculate about a possible definitive withdrawal, the theories took on even greater proportions. Some believed they knew more than they were saying. Others thought this decision was simply the inevitable result of a fight that had been too long. But what few know is that, behind the scenes, there was another layer to the story. Leaked documents suggested that a crucial clue had been discarded. At the time, seemed irrelevant. An anonymous tip reporting the movement of a suspicious vehicle near the resort on the night of the disappearance. The files show that the information was ignored due to a lack of concrete evidence, but now, years later, it has regained relevance. And an unexpected connection could change everything. Then the unexpected decision came to light. After a meeting with lawyers and consultants specialized in disappearance cases, the McCanns announced that they were formally ending the searches funded by the family. The official phrase was clear: "It is time to accept what cannot be changed." To the public, it seemed like a surrender, but for those who followed closely, there was something that didn't make sense. Why now? That was the question many asked. After all, in recent years, technological advancements like facial recognition and artificial intelligence had started to offer new tools to solve old cases. Did the McCanns believe that these technologies could act on their own, without the need for the family's direct efforts? Or was there something darker, something that motivated them to step out of the scene once and for all? Tabloids wasted no time speculating. Some insinuated that new details had emerged and that the McCanns were trying to avoid another scandal. Others raised the possibility that the family had received confidential information indicating that Madeleine was, unfortunately, no longer alive. But none of this was confirmed. What was confirmed, however, was the emergence of a new internal document from the Portuguese police. In it, an investigator reported something that, to this day, has not been clarified. An anonymous witness had claimed to have seen a child with characteristics similar to Madeleine being placed on a boat hours after the disappearance. This witness, curiously, was never called to formally testify. And here is the most intriguing point, says a specialist who recently reviewed the case. If this clue had been investigated, it's possible that Madeleine's fate could have been discovered that very week. But now, 17 years later, how much of this information is still useful? How much was lost in time? Meanwhile, Kate continues to be seen, occasionally, visiting locations related to the case. She seems distant, but still determined. She will never accept silence as an answer, a close friend said. But at the same time, she knows she needs to keep living, even if it means living with the doubt. And it is exactly this dilemma that creates the most tense moment of the story, the doubt about what truly motivated this decision. Was it a cry of relief after years of pressure? Or is there something bigger? Something that has not yet been revealed, something that could transform this case once and for all. When the McCanns made their announcement, it came as a shock to everyone who had followed the search for Madeleine for almost 2 decades. The ensuing silence, both from the family and the investigators, created an information vacuum that was quickly filled with assumptions. And here is something that few people noticed. Their decision was not just personal, but seemed coordinated with something much bigger happening behind the scenes. Imagine what went through Kate's mind when she finally signed the official statement. The pen in her hand was trembling, the weight of 17 years of accumulated pain flowing onto the paper in the form of a simple phrase: "There is nothing more we can do." Next to her, Jerry was serious, staring into the void as if trying to understand the implications of what they had just decided. The room felt smaller, suffocating, with the sound of hurried footsteps, of assistants in the background, and the echo of the newly drafted statement still hanging in the air. But what about you? Have you ever stopped to think about what it means to reach this point? To spend almost 2 decades desperately searching for answers, believing that somehow the truth is within reach, only to realize that perhaps it will never appear? What would you do in their place? This decision to no longer directly fund the searches seems simple at first glance, but reveals much more than it appears. Shortly after the announcement, theories emerged from all sides. They know more than they are telling, some said. Others believe the decision was related to a new direction in the investigations. That had not yet been was the possibility that this decision is not an end, but a turning point. Something that puts the case in a new direction, away from the family's direct control, perhaps to protect something that cannot yet be revealed. The public reaction was immediate. Some media outlets, as usual, treated the decision as an admission of defeat. Headlines pointed to the McCanns' emotional and financial exhaustion, with simplistic analyses that ignored the nuances of such a decision. But a statement from a retired investigator who worked on the case brought a different perspective. The decision to step back could be strategic. Sometimes silence reveals more than words. And it was precisely in this silence that doubts began to grow. What motivated the decision now, after so many years? Was it a truly personal choice, or was there something bigger influencing it? This is where we enter the most intriguing part of this story. A few days after the McCann statement, a curious detail emerged. Confidential information obtained by an independent journalist indicated that a new DNA test was being conducted using old samples from an object found in Madeleine's room on the night of her disappearance. This was done with technology that did not exist in 2007, something so advanced that it could provide clearer answers about who was in that room. Now think with me, why conduct such a test now, after so many years? Why wait for a family seemingly so determined to fund searches to announce their withdrawal so that this detail would come to light? This doesn't seem like a coincidence, right? If the circulating clues are real, there is a chance that the McCanns were informally informed that the case is closer to being solved than the public imagines. But this raises another question. Why keep this information secret? And more importantly, what was discovered in these tests that still cannot be disclosed? The consequences could be enormous. Imagine that the genetic material reveals something that was never considered before. Perhaps a direct connection to someone close to the case, a piece that has always been there but was never fitted. This would explain the family's withdrawal, a strategic move to avoid interference while the authorities finally managed to act. Meanwhile, Kate continues to be seen by neighbors at times that seem to contradict the idea of complete surrender. A witness reported seeing her carrying boxes of documents in a car a few days after the announcement. What would be in those papers? Are they old notes, personal revisions of the case, or something more relevant, something that should not fall into the wrong hands? The most intense point arises when you consider that all this silence might be the prelude to a turnaround. When such an emblematic case seems to cool down, it is precisely there that the most significant changes usually happen. And to be honest, this makes us question, are we on the verge of discovering something that could completely change everything we thought we knew about Madeleine McCann? Now that we have reached this point, it is clear that the story is far from over. The tension between what has been revealed and what is yet to come is palpable. And you? Can you feel that something bigger is about to emerge? When the McCanns decided to announce that they would no longer fund the searches for Madeleine, the ensuing silence was as deafening as the accusations they faced in the past. It was hard to understand how a couple who built their lives around this search, who carried the weight of the world on their shoulders, could simply stop. But what seemed like a full stop was actually a comma, a strategic pause in a story still in progress. The moment Kate and Jerry drafted the statement was described by close people as one of the most tense of their journey. The room was lit only by a lamp on the table, with shadows dancing on the walls. Kate held the paper with trembling hands, while Jerry read aloud, cutting each word with a tone of exhaustion and determination. "We are trusting that the authorities will continue." These words, which seemed like a delegation of responsibilities, were actually hiding a calculated move. Stepping back from the front lines could be the only way not to interfere with a larger operation underway. And here is the point that few noticed. The statement was not about giving up, but about something they could not yet share. It's like a chess game where you sacrifice a smaller piece to protect the king. Do the McCanns know more than they are revealing? Is this decision linked to new evidence that has not yet been disclosed? Jerry, in a brief statement to the press, said, "We never lost hope, but sometimes you have to trust the process." And this phrase, although it seemed like a cliche, appeared to contain something bigger. The weeks following the announcement brought a kind of uncomfortable peace, walking in the garden as if trying to regain some normalcy. But neighbors said they saw them talking on the phone for hours, often with expressions ranging from hope to anxiety. It's almost impossible to imagine the weight of knowing something the world does not yet know. And what does this silence mean for the case? But while the world judged them, another story was unfolding. Confidential sources indicated that a joint operation between the British and European police was underway, revisiting old clues with modern technologies. This included something that, at the time, did not seem relevant: a strand of hair found in the car rented by the McCanns, which had never been analyzed with today's advanced methods. Could this be the thread that connects the entire plot? The McCanns' decision to step back and cease funding the searches is not just an emotional conclusion, it is also a piece that could redefine the entire narrative. To me, this choice brings two clear messages. First, the emotional and financial exhaustion of years living in the limbo of uncertainties. Second, and perhaps more intriguing, is the possibility that they trust in something bigger, a parallel investigation, evidence that has yet to come to light, or even the hope that this time, the system will work on its own. Let's be honest, this pause does not mean surrender, but perhaps a new kind of strength. One that comes from silence, from the understanding that certain moves need to happen away from the spotlight. I believe that their gesture carries deep symbolism. After 17 years, the Madeleine McCann case is at a stage where any news could come from where least expected. Maybe it's time to look at what was previously ignored, to revisit discarded details, such as the involvement of people close to the location at the time, or modern technologies that now allow unraveling what was once impossible. That said, one thing is certain: this decision is not a full stop. It is a transition point, and we are closer than ever to something revelatory. The case remains one of the greatest reflections of humanity's failures and promises. Our fragility in the face of the unknown, but also our ability to persevere in the search for answers. Now, you who are here until the end, what do you think? I am on the team that believes in the truth. Comment this so I know you followed along. And tell me, which part of this story do you think still needs more light? I want to hear your ideas for future videos. Oh, and if you think you've seen everything about this case, let me tell you, the next video will bring an analysis that connects a forgotten detail to a possible twist. Click on the next video on the end screen, and I guarantee you'll be even more intrigued. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to follow everything. The story continues, and you won't want to miss the next chapter.